It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Traditional granny flat approach. Maybe you want to do this to keep the teenagers, outside of the main house so that they can be a bit more rowdy and louder. It is a wonderful, quick way of establishing housing.
And that is Simon Kuestenmacher on the Real Estate Breakfast this morning as we connect you to what is going on in your local area across Australia every morning. If you have a real estate story that you would like to share with us, let us know what that story is and email it to us to myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. And Patrick and Susie, good morning to you in Perth. Great to hear from you. Long-time listeners, you did exactly that. Emailed a story through. You heard us talking about people moving to Cairns the other day. You are not going that far. Instead, you're moving to Buderim on the Sunshine Coast. It's a lovely little spot, Buderim. Your daughter is currently living there with her husband, you say, and your grandchildren, and you've been missing out on spending time with your grandchildren. And as a result, what you've decided to do is sell the large family home, downsize. You say that you're probably not going to miss out on anything. You will have plenty of money left over from the sale for the bank account. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Good luck in Buderim. And if you would like to email us your story, whatever it might be with relation to your property journey, our email address is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Well, it is a Tuesday morning, June the 17th, as we catch up with Simon Kuestenmacher there in Sydney. Good morning to you, Simon. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast. First off, Patrick and Susie, they're not alone when it comes to moving because of grandchildren. And because you are into your demographics and numbers around data, what would be a really interesting number to know is how many Australian grandparents are re-establishing themselves into different cities around Australia because they want to spend more time with their grandchildren.
That'd be absolutely wonderful to know. One of the problems with demographic data, meaning why or where is somebody moving, we have this, at least based on census data, every 5 years. We know how people relocate and from where they relocate and so forth, but we do not know the reasons for relocation. Is this just a lifestyle preference because people just enjoy going to the Sunshine Coast because they like the weather? Is it because the grandchildren are there? The data doesn't tell this to us, but we know anecdotally, and we just heard yet another anecdote, we consider tag-along grandparents become more and more common. So the idea is that you combine downsizing with the relocation closer to your grandchildren. It's an absolutely understandable and rather smart move, by the way, because we have so much knowledge and information about your mental health. So when you are aging, when you're retiring and you get stuck in the large family home, especially if you are a widower, we know that you start to become lonely, and that has a negative impact on your mental health. So the older you get, when you don't have your social fix from your place of work anymore, it becomes absolutely crucial to have a social network and a bit of social meaning, if you will, guaranteed in your life. And moving closer to family is a fantastic way of doing this, especially if you can, cash in a bit in the process, because why would you want to die with all this wealth? Spend a bit of money on the grandkids, splurge them a bit, because ultimately this is the most valuable gift that you can give your grandkids, is time with the grandparents, is to, impart your love and wisdom on those little munchkins while you're at it.
Yes, cash in on the little munchkins, as you say. So if that is you, do let us know if you are moving from one state to another because of your grandchildren. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Average house dwelling price the other day, that number came out, $1 million. And I'll get you just to explain, because sometimes people get a little bit confused with median house price and average dwelling house price. So yeah, $1 million, big number.
Exactly. So what we heard here, the announcement, is a rather unusual measurement. So we get used to the median house price, and the median measures the price of all the dwellings that have been sold. All those houses get lined up in a big fat row, and the house price exactly in the center of this big line, that is the median, just the middle price. It is very different from the average, because if you just have $100 million super sexy luxury villa, it would inflate the average number. And so to make sure that those outliers are not in the data, we measure the median usually. So median house price is what you would be used to. The measure that was announced, I think last week, was the average dwelling price. So we're not just looking at houses, we're looking at apartments, flats as well. And if you take all of the units, houses sold, and you add up all the money divided by the number of dwellings, we now are over $1 million.
All right, we are talking to Simon Kuestenmacher there in Sydney. We'll come back after this and talk about something that we were talking about around a week or so ago.
We are more than just a real estate podcast. We cover a multitude of subjects, including property data, current buyer-seller sentiment, and the mood of the market. Follow each week all of the main talking points and know your property.
Well, we recently talked about household mortgage stress that was reported for people with a combined income of over $200,000. People were asking, how is that possible? But it really comes down to what you bought, how you leveraged yourself into a property, and with how much debt. And then, of course, the market drastically changing after COVID, and together with people's stress-tested original loan parameters also in the mix of changing.
Yeah, spot on. The norm in 5 of Australia's capital cities now is that the average price of real estate is $1 million. So you have to start there. So anybody that's purchased in the last few years has had to borrow a lot of money just to get into the market. The average wage, unfortunately, no longer can afford the average capital city property. Couple that with the fact that there's been a real decline in living standards since the middle of 2002, and that's approximately 8%, plus pretty stagnant wage growth. And we end up in this situation that people are, looking at the rising cost of bills and wondering how they can put it all together. There will be people out there who will go, oh, poor them, they've got their house, whatever else. But unfortunately for many of these people, that if they sell the property and go and rent, it's not a considerable saving for them.
Listen to expert perspectives with exclusive real estate conversations and supercharge your knowledge base with us.
And it is a Real Estate Tuesday. Have you got a great day lined up? If you are looking at properties, good luck with any of those open home looks. Not that long ago, we were talking about container homes, shipping homes, these 40-foot containers being turned into little, small, tiny homes. And Simon, I know that we have spoken in the past about doing things at scale, massive factories being built around Australia. This is a really smart approach, of course, speeding up just how many homes that you can deliver. But I'd be interested in your thoughts on container homes, because this is starting to catch fire somewhat.
Exactly. It targets a very specific niche. It's the idea, I have a bit of room on my property. I want to plonk in another spare bedroom with a little kitchenette and a bathroom. Traditional granny flat approach. Maybe you want to do this to keep the teenagers, outside of the main house so that they can be a bit more rowdy and louder. It is a wonderful, quick way of establishing housing. You pour a bit of concrete, you plonk this thing on top. This is a super quick way of adding bedrooms, of adding dwellings to the housing stock. I'm in massive support. We do not have enough diversity in the housing market, and this fills exactly this particular need.
Now, he's in Melbourne, and what I actually found really interesting about our conversation is that you can use it as a primary dwelling home. And that really surprised me, but he said, yeah, no problems at all. We're doing it all the time. One of the ideas that I really liked was he gets these requests to build two 40-foot containers. Rather than joining them together, because as you can imagine, you've got all of the steel and the welding that's got to take place, he just builds this deck between the two and roofs it. And you've got this really nice area between two 40-foot containers.
Absolutely. And this is a wonderful housing solution. Again, it fills a niche. It is not that we will all live in those container homes, but it is in many instances, this might just be the solution because you offer housing fast. It is a bit niche, but that's fine. And particularly if you are someone who has a bit of land to spare, that might be an option. If you look about these standard properties, the infill sites that we have, is this the right solution? Probably not. These sites are too specific. If you look at the greenfield development market, this is probably not it because you have big building companies building their product on top. But for many niches where land is privately owned and there is enough space available, just this quick housing solution is exactly what people are after.
Yeah, let's go from one extreme to another. The cost of being in the top 5% of Sydney versus the rest of the country. In Sydney, to break into the top 5% of the housing market, you're looking at properties starting at around 4.3 million, more than triple the city's median house price. And the same ratio holds true in Melbourne, but of course at slightly lower numbers. But in other capitals like Adelaide and Darwin, the gap is closer to double the median, which does tell us how far away the Sydney market has got.
Exactly. Sydney as a market has gotten very, very expensive at the top end, and it will intensify this gap. So you can't build out much more. So you can't sprawl, and sprawling is the cheapest way of building housing at the moment. So we will add more expensive dwelling stock. This means that land prices will escalate even more. And so the top 5% would be not just nice houses, but these would be houses on large land packages relative to their location. So they will accrue more wealth. There will be good investments. There will, of course, be only investments for people with deep pockets. So that is another way of saying housing has gotten more unaffordable and saying that the market is being increasingly split into two. The middle market, so the median market, is more and more shriveling away because the rich Sydney-siders would not be seen dead in a median-priced house, and the poor Sydney-siders will never ever be able to afford a median-priced house. So we move towards just a two-tier housing market, and the wealth transfer, when we have baby boomers dying very soon and inheriting their homes, that will intensify this two-tiered market.
It's not just about being in the 5% of the market. It's about paper wealth and deep capital, as you're talking about. Many buyers, in fact, in this elite tier, still carry significant debt to get into these properties, relying on high incomes or generational wealth to stay afloat. So if you're looking at purchasing a $4 million property in Sydney or Melbourne, there is still risk around that if you are not resourced well. All right, Simon, great to catch up with you on our Tuesday. Go well, enjoy your week, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Fantastic. Looking forward to be back.
Unlock the secrets of real estate and stay informed about the latest real estate buzz with hot market trends, emerging suburbs, and hidden gems.
The other thing with the second property, psychologically, in your own mind, it proves that the first one was no fluke, and that completely clears your mind from any self-doubt.
I think it's an enormous boost to their esteem, to their ability, their capabilities. The first one is hard to get, and once you get it, it's great. But when you get that next one or subsequent ones, it does say that you've got a strategy that's working and that you've planned for. And yeah, it's a great feeling.
Have you struck that before where somebody is bought from you? There is that self-doubt where they're saying, oh, Sharon, I'm not too sure if I'm doing the right thing here.
I think the first one scares people. Mortgages are massive things to get your head around, and just acquiring that first property, uncharted territory, new territory. And once you've had it for a while and you get that next one, it backs you up. It gives you that self-esteem.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.